What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to Double Coverage. We hope you're still living, loving, and breathing sport. I'm Dom with the Great Man Sauce, and we got a nice special guest today, Sauce. We've got
We do.
someone
We do.
that is
Excited to
great
have
to
him on.
consult. We've got Lou Geneux from Card Talk Pod. So, Lou, how are you going?
I'm doing amazing. You have probably the best intro I've ever heard.
You
Intro
like
to a
it? Oh,
podcast right there. Yeah, that's really good
appreciate that.
stuff. I might snag that. I've been trying to figure out like a good way to like intro and like outro because like Ryan normally does our intro for our podcast, but like whenever we do like an intro, I do like a Instagram live or whatever, I feel really awkward and I end up just like singing. So if you go on any of our Instagram lives that I do, the beginning is like because I'm just like
Yeah.
making noise to like pass the time. But I'm doing really well. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it, boys.
Anytime. Make sure in that intro, when you put yourself, Ryan, and Tyler, you got to chuck your cat in there too. That's a must.
Yeah,
Always.
I mean, he's chilling right now, so we're just gonna hope that he stays
Like
quiet.
he's obviously the mascot of the podcast.
On the low, he doesn't know it,
Yeah,
but he is.
yeah. If you have not seen it, Lou's cat will always make an appearance. So first and foremost, let's just get straight into it. Tell us how you got into the hobby and what you collect.
Yep. So I was into cards back when I was a kid. I'm 27, just turned 27. So my first like foray that I can remember into cards was 2003, LeBron's rookie year. So myself, my dad, Gary, Vaynerchuk, AJ Vaynerchuk, and their friend Brandon used to go to we used to go to card stores and card shops and card shows pretty much every weekend back in the day, and we were looking for LeBrons, right? We did a lot of Bowman Chrome ripping, looking for singles, all that stuff. So that was my first foray. I was into it for a couple years. I kind of, like as kids do, they fade into other things and they like get interested. I think I'm too cool. I'm playing sports. I'm playing video games. Like I don't want to do cards anymore, whatever. Fast forward to 2017-ish, late 2017. I'm working at VaynerMedia, and Gary's like, listen, I'm all in on this. Like, let's get back into it. It'll be so much fun, blah, blah, blah. So I started helping him out. And ever since then, I've been pretty much every day looking at cards for the last like 3 years. So
That's pretty sick. That's a lot. Yeah. Saucy would be all over that every day, day in, day out.
That's right. It'd be good fun to just be able to just talk cards all day in, day out, and just get inside like, Gary's brain, just and point him in that direction.
It's not even like we were like I was talking to people and like making and talking about cards, right? It was more literally being on eBay every single day. That's what I did for like a year and a half straight.
That's crazy. That's awesome, but
it sounds like my life right now, Doma, which is what I do. Just,
you are a bit like that every day.
Even got 2 eBay accounts so I can watch more listings.
Oh wow! Is there a limit on how many listings you can watch? Is that a thing?
Yeah, it is. It is.
And you've broke what? How many is it? I think you're the only one who knows that because you watch so many items.
What is it? That's actually...
I don't know the limit.
You just blew past it. So
all I know is that I got 2 phones and there's an eBay account. There's an eBay account on each phone. And
oh man!
Don't worry, Lou. You should ask him about Panini Dunk app. That'd be even funny. He's got like 6 devices, and he's
what
just
is going on over there, bro?
Someone has to set these trends in Australia at the moment.
Oh, no. Wait, can I curse on here or no?
Oh yeah.
Don't worry, bro.
Yeah.
We
I'm
not
not just gonna start. I have a very bad mouth and I can't help myself, so I always like to check. But keep going.
That's okay.
Sorry.
Ours is just as bad. So, oh, beautiful. So, how did Card Talk Pod come about?
Yeah. So, 2018 National. We're there. We're having fun all weekend, and I'm with Tyler, who is part of Gary's team as well. And we're like, there's just no big podcast floating around in cards, right? So it was like, we should do this, whatever. And then life happens, right? Like the thing about like how we work is like everything's very siloed. So we go. I was in Chicago for an entire week, and all I thought about was cards and like doing this podcast, whatever. But then we go back to work, and it's like, all right, I have to work now, and like, I get distracted. But
yeah,
I have a cat digging through a box. He is. Give me 1 second.
There's the cat.
There it is. I got a PS5, but I haven't put it away yet. Anyway, so we leave Chicago and like things just happen, right? It didn't work out. We always talked about doing it, and we were trying to find the right time, and never lined up. Whatever. And then COVID happens, quarantine happens, and we're home, and we're like, let's just start. Let's just do this, right? And so we're like, all right, we'll do it under 1:37 p.m. And the first person we thought to talk to was Ryan, Card Collector 2. He was one of the original people that I had followed when I got back into cards. I was trying to figure out what was happening in cards. I said this before too. He used to do these national vlogs about like what to expect at the national, and it was like a 6-part YouTube series, and I watched every single video trying to understand what was going on. And so we asked him, and thankfully he was into it, which was awesome. And we just hit the ground running. It was like we did some test shows, we tried some stuff out, and I'm sure, obviously we're still like less than a year into the show, but if you listen to our first show as opposed to the show we have now, it's a much different show. So it's been really fun working with Ryan and Tyler and getting that thing going.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, we were a bit the same. Obviously, like we heard your podcast come about, and then obviously LTB as well, how they were going, and it was the same thing. Like we talked about it for so long, and then COVID came, and then we were in lockdown and we're stuck in our home for like a few months, and then we just said, well, what are we going to do?
Yeah, like what else should we be doing? You know what I mean? And it's like an hour. It's like realistically, it's an hour, 2 a week, and you kind of just go. So it's
exactly. Now, here's an interesting one. So, how did you know, or did you know, it would work between you, Tyler, and Ryan, the dynamic, or was it just let's just run with it and see what happens?
Well, it was definitely run with it. Obviously, Tyler and myself are really close friends. We talk pretty much every single day. So he and I had a rapport, right? And that's what the test shows were for. We were going to see how it went. Thankfully, I hope it's gone well. I hope people like listening to us jabber on for an hour every week. But yeah, there's no really way to know until you start doing it, right? So
yeah, 100%. Insight into how big the market is over there in the US, just in terms of like getting retail product.
Yeah, it's impossible. I don't know what it's like for you guys. Do you guys even get retail? I apologize if I ask a bunch of stupid questions here because I'm actually very curious. Do you guys get retail product there? Do you guys have Target?
Source, I'll leave this one to you because retail product only lasts 5 seconds in this country. And
yeah, same here.
I'm not exaggerating that because it's on pre-orders. So, Source, if you just want to quickly.
Yeah. So how the retail product runs here, like we have Target and Kmart, which you formerly had, and they do get product in, and there it's sort of just it appears on the shelf, and it appears and it's gone in the next second. But the main, and then there's a few other independent retailers that do get some stuff, and there's some local news agencies that do get some stuff. But the number one retailer is a company by the name of EB Games, and they've got another partner company called Zing, and they're the major retailer, so majority of the stock goes there, and everything on their store is a pre-order. So they drop a 24-hour countdown timer on their website to let people know that the next day that there's going to be a release. The release happens, the countdown timer makes it to the end, and all the stock is essentially bought out within 5 to 10 seconds. And now it's got to the point where, because they're doing that sort of release, there are people with bots that have now created bots for the site that are now just like taking up all the stock, which I tried to warn people. I've been warning people for 6 months on our podcast that the bots were coming, and they just finally figured out how to run it perfectly just in time for the Prism basketball release. So they timed that one perfectly, and some people were still able to get some stuff manually, but it's going to get more and more difficult because there was only one bot running last time, but now I know there's actually 2 bots that have been configured because I'm in a bit of a sneaker flipping crew group that collect sneakers and buy sneakers in a Discord. So, and they I'm on top of things that are happening in that scene, just so I'm aware, so I know if I'm going to be able to get any retail stock or not. But yeah, it's an interesting dynamic. Look, I sort of don't comprehend or understand why people line outside of Target for 4 hours on a Friday afternoon. Like, it's, in my eyes, it's a waste of time. But I mean, if that's what they're going to do, that's what they're going to do. But I don't think it will last that long, to be honest, because I highly doubt Target wants to be having four managers there every Friday just to allow 30-year-old men to get a box of select football. So
that's true. But when you say it's a waste of time, but I mean, I don't know. Like, here now they have limits, right? So like a lot of stores have gone to like one box per customer. But previously, bro, it's like, all right, I could spend, $60 on 3 blasters, and I can make that $60 like $300 really quickly, right? So like $300 is a lot of money. So if it's a few hours of your time, that adds up, because again, if I'm speaking from an American perspective, if you're just a regular kid who works at like Starbucks or whatever else, like, that's more money than you make in those 4 hours, right? So like the money's there. When it comes to the waiting, the limits, and the stores don't want it, all that, 100%, and that stuff's going to keep changing. I personally don't understand why these car companies don't just do everything direct to consumer, but that's goes above my pay grade and things I don't understand. So it's interesting. The retail thing's interesting. Here, it's definitely tampered down. I am someone who stacks a lot of retail product where I can, or what I try to at least, and it's gotten a lot harder. I was, Prism Football, I was able to buy multiple mega boxes, multiple blasters, multiple hangers off of one person. Now I'm like, you're lucky if you can find 2 or 3, and they all want full eBay asking. So that's the other thing that's happened. That's gotten really interesting. It used to be that you could go to someone who had a bunch of, cello packs, and you can get them for $10 on top of their retail price. Now everyone wants full eBay. So it's gotten very, very interesting with the retail stuff, especially here.
I think the way I saw it, like, over in the States, and it's like, I think it's because it's how it's changed. The system is changing over there to get your retail, as sources saying,
in real time.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, it could be the waste of time. I understand where he's coming from in terms of, like, if you're lining up and it's 1 per customer, you may not get anything. Like, you might line up for 4 hours but there could be enough stock. But genuinely, you got to be unlucky. You may not get anything. But before, I completely agree with you. Like, and we did it here over in Australia before everything started changing in our country. Sure. So we haven't got limits. It's just more, there's people that dedicate their time to going to every different chain store and just buying out every single product. So I completely agree before, as you're saying, like, there's a kid over there, works at Starbucks, his wage could be small for the week, where he could go get a Prism Blaster and sell it for 300 and happy days.
That's what he makes in a week. That's real talk.
I completely agree with that. But I think it's the same dynamic now for both of our markets, over where you are in the States and over here, where it's now got to the point where it's like, I've got a limit. I may not get product, where it was so widely available to us before, but everyone caught onto it so quickly. And then obviously there's kids that are in uni, so college and stuff, and they don't work, or they do, and it's part-time, and they drive, and they think, what have I got to do my whole day? Instead of me sleeping in, I can just go raid every single chain store and just buy out everything.
Yeah, I think a lot about, I think the same, what you just said struck core with me, because I think about this with video games. I think about this with flipping. I think about it with anything involving like time as the variable, right? Because when you're an adult, I don't know how old you guys are, and I wouldn't consider myself to be like a big tough adult.
We're the same age. We're all 3 of us are the same age.
Great. Yeah. So like, when you have a regular job, you don't have 6 hours every day to go sit in line at stuff, right? And that's where those opportunities are for those people. So personally, I'm like, yeah, cool. Like, that kid who doesn't have another opportunity to make that much money, he's making that money now. That's awesome. And if I can't afford to wait, I gotta pay the VIG. That's just the way it is. But yeah, you're 100%. Right. Like, now it's like 1 box per person. It's a little bit. I can't. Obviously, the math is there, but I don't know what it is to make it make sense.
100%. It's crazy, and not for anything. I don't know if you've seen it as well, but we're starting to see some stuff over here where not card related, but because cards are so massive, and people understand now the value in basketball cards, and people in Pokemon cards think, it's a piece of cardboard, it's only worth. It's like, whatever, dude. You know what I mean? That's your opinion. That's fine. But then now the prices that have been set in that hobby, it's transitioning across the board. We've got cars here. Like, cars are like a depreciating asset, and people are now selling cars for 50, 60K more because it's like, this is a rare car because it's like this, and it's like, but it's a depreciating, but it's starting to transition to different markets and different which is crazy. It's absolutely bonkers.
Different conversation entirely, but I was trying to buy a car as well recently, and it was impossible. Like, used cars were hard to find. It was very strange. I think there's something to do with like supply chains and all that stuff because of COVID that I don't understand at all. So I just am like, cool, I'm just gonna not have a car for now, and that'll be how that goes. So that's what I'm doing. But it's crazy, man. It's wild times out there for sure.
Definitely is. Now, next one is tell us about your live stream that you did with current and former athletes, but also some great people in the hobby. So how did it come about?
Yeah, I mean, we had a plan to do that. We've wanted to do that as soon as we started the podcast. We're going to keep doing it. There's going to be more and more stuff like that for sure. But we just want to do like live events, right? Like, we did a podcast live at the Dallas Card Show. We got plans for other live stuff as well. And it was a good time. Honestly, I will take zero credit for that event. Again, I just kind of showed up. Tyler was the one who Tyler and the team at Gallery Media Group really led the charge on that one. Getting guests, getting cool guests, everything like that. Funny story about that was the day after I got my second vaccine shot. So I was completely out of it the entire day. And they were like, here's the guest list. Like, we did practice runs and everything before, like, earlier. And I was paying attention, blah, 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 but I like forgot what we were going to, like, who we were going to speak to most of the time. So people like I think it was, someone popped up and I was like, wait, what is going on? It was really, really cool. Talking to Pat McAfee was obviously super cool. Talking to people like Probstein, who runs like one of the biggest, like a top 5 biggest eBay account in cards, right? Top 3 even, I don't know. It's really, really interesting getting different perspectives. Another part of it is with the athletes is they are now becoming a lot more aware of that stuff, a lot more aware of collectibles and like the value of all these signatures that they sign. Panini signs a deal with them and they just get a bunch of cards put in front of them or a bunch of stickers. And they're like, all right, cool. I got to sign like 5,000 signatures. Right. But now that awareness is clearly way more there. And I noticed a lot more athletes even posting on their own social about cards, which is really cool. So it was really fun. We obviously there's a little bit of a, not starstruck, but like you're just excited. Like, I was excited to be talking to people like that, right? Different for me for sure. So it was a good time. It's a good event. Hopefully we'll have more in the future. But it was a good time.
That's awesome. That is really, really good. Collecting strategies, Lou. Are they the same for you across all types of cards? Or have you got a specific strategy for sports, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh?
Yeah. Well, no. It's the same, but different across the board. So in sports, it's the same no matter what. I have pretty standard principles I think about when I'm trying to buy cards of players, either if I'm trying to buy them sit on them for a while, or if I want to do quicker flips, right? The quicker flips are a lot harder to come by these days. But it's pretty standard stuff. Timing when I want to buy stuff, obviously that's different by the year, but it's the same general principle, right? Like off season or mid season and then hold for the next one. You know what I mean? Like that kind of stuff. But when I'm thinking about Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh, 20 years from now, that's literally all I think about, right? I'd be lying if I said I never sold any Pokemon cards. I've sold some because I just see margins and I'm like, all right, cool, whatever. I'll move on from this one. But Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh, I see as things to sell when I'm 50, 55 years old, right? We had Jeremy Padawer on our podcast early on, and something he said to us was, this is the first generation. You meaning me are the first generation of people who collected these things. And the marketplace and the need and the want for collectibles is driven by nostalgia for the most part. People buy baseball cards because they liked that player when they were a kid. They buy basketball cards because when they were in high school, that's whose jump shot they modeled after or whatever, right? Pokemon was the biggest thing on planet Earth in 1999 through 2003-ish, 2004-ish, probably, if I had to guess. It was the biggest thing on Earth. The anime was gigantic. The cards were huge. Like it was everything. And I think what happened was with Pokemon, a lot of people thought the same way, like I just described. And that's where that run up really, really happened. A lot more people. There's obviously been a thriving community of Pokemon collectors this entire time. I would never claim to know more than those people for sure. And that's where I think that run up did happen. But I still see all of it as like a very long-term asset. When the card boom of 2043 happens, that's when I'm going to be selling my Pokemon cards, or my Yu-Gi-Oh cards. That's how I think about it.
That's an interesting perspective. And playing the long game, I see, which is smart move, if you ask me.
Yeah, it's also tough, right? Because I would love to take my profit margins on my Pokemon, but I don't think I'll be able to. Anytime I sell anything, I'm like, am I going to be able to get this for? Do I see an opportunity where I'll be able to get this for cheaper than I have it for right now? And what am I going to do with the money that I'm going to take from this? And whenever I think about my Pokemon cards, I'm like, I just don't have anything else that I'd rather buy for the dollar amount that I would have with it. So,
I think it's a good way of looking at it. And like you said, like we're the first generation of that, and we grew up with Pokemon. And I think it's going to get to a point where with sports cards, it's like, yeah, that guy's a myth. Like the Mantle card, that's a myth. Like I didn't get to see him play, and like we know. And then obviously the card goes to so much, but then everyone knows who Jordan is. But when it comes to TCG cards and Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh especially, I just think that the first series, like that Charizard, the 99 first edition Charizard, that is, or any of those first edition, whether they're unlimited or first edition print, doesn't matter. Even the same with Yu-Gi-Oh. I just think because they're forever adapting the anime and the manga, like the show is going to continue till whatever. We'll just say in 20 years' time. Like, it's a good way of thinking. I'm just thinking about this now. So it's like in 20 years' time, the TV show is still going. Yu-Gi-Oh is still making cards. Pokemon's still making cards. Kids that are then 15, 16, or then 27 at that point in time will turn around and go, wait a second, I wonder what the original cards look like. Like, what's the holy grail of cards? It would be obviously the first set that was ever created for these types of cards. And they'll go back and they'll go, oh, Charizard, or Blue Eyes White Dragon, or Dark Magician. And then, not for anything, the price run up on those cards because they become the ultimate grail cards. They're just a grail card now because everyone's eyes have moved onto that hobby. And as you would have seen yourself, Lou, the price drops in Pokemon cards over the last month have been dramatic. And I think it's a good time really to just start buying them back up probably. Like, what's your thoughts on that?
I understand why the prices drop, right? It's like I was saying, it's the prices are interesting and sticking to numbers is tough. I'm sure you guys think about this as well. Like when people are like, oh yeah, is this a good price? It's like, it's hard to say, right? Because as these, like I personally think that having a Charizard, I don't think I'll ever have $500,000 spent on a card, but I think $500,000 for a Charizard is fine, because like, when I think about Charizard, I think about it as a Michael Jordan or Mickey Mantle, right? Like a lot of people who are older than us they would laugh if they heard that, but it's true. And I could probably argue that that Charizard is bigger than Mickey Mantle. Like realistically, no disrespect, like I don't know a lot of people who care about Mickey Mantle unless they're older. Right?
Yeah. It's actually a fair point.
It's a very fair point.
Like no one really. I don't think I've ever had a conversation about Mickey Mantle in my life. So like,
Charizard.
There's a whole bunch of people here down in Australia who would have no clue who the hell Mickey Mantle is.
Correct, and they definitely would know who Charizard is.
Correct.
So So Pokemon is, again, I really just think about it as a long-term asset, and these peaks and valleys that happened over the last year are inevitable. Charizard's going to go up again, right? Because a bunch of them came available. The ones that came available were the people who had bought them for 5, 10, 25, 35, 45, 55, $100,000. They're like, wait, I could sell this for 500, 400, 300. Okay, great. See you later. Because if you have a brain and you like money, that's what you're going to do, right? So when you get to these higher price items, what I've come to realize is the pool is smaller but more motivated. So obviously there's a very, very small, there's maybe thousands of people on planet Earth who could spend $500,000 on a piece of cardboard. We could joke about it, whatever, but it is a piece of cardboard. So like the pool for buyers is very small. So when one or two come up, awesome.
Yeah.
When you get to your third, fourth, fifth, we've probably seen more Charizards come up in the last year and a half than came up in the last 10 before that, right? So PSA 10, I'm talking, obviously.
Yeah.
So the buyer pool is smaller, but these floors are resetting. Previously, if 5 years ago you told someone that a Charizard would sell for $250,000, they would lose their fucking minds. But today you're like, wow, that's a big drop off. Wow, blah, blah, blah. The short term is the part that I don't pay much attention to, because I think about this stuff in like a 10, 20, 30 year window.
Yeah, completely agree. I like it. Yu-Gi-Oh! Thoughts on that? Bit of insight into that. It's common.
I agree. So here's my thing with Yu-Gi-Oh! Yu-Gi-Oh! Was on the back end of when I was paying attention to Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! And when I was younger and I was watching Cartoon Network, which is what channel it was on here. I'm not sure what channel it was on there, but it was on Cartoon Network here. And I remember the Blue Eyes set, and that's it. I have at least a decent knowledge of other Pokemon sets. I know absolutely nothing of Yu-Gi-Oh! Outside of the original Blue Eyes set. I feel the same way about Pokemon, about Yu-Gi-Oh! That I do about Pokemon on a smaller scale. It's obviously not as big of an IP, but I do think that card game was very, very big. So Blue Eyes seems like a play to me. Dark Magician, Gaia, all that stuff feels like very, very interesting in the first edition. And I'm sure there's other ones that I just don't understand as much, so I wouldn't be able to speak to them. But first edition Yu-Gi-Oh! I feel great about.
Completely agree. I think the big three that Source and I keep saying to everyone is Red Eyes Black Dragon, Blue Eyes White Dragon, and Dark Magician. So they're obviously the main cards that were used by the main three characters, which are like Kaiba, Yugi, and Joey. So, and they were obviously the three most popular, really, when we were watching the cartoons growing up. So I think it's definitely on a run up, and it will get to a point where it's going to become very popular. And I think it's a good time. Like, honestly, the pricing for it is literally, I know it's expensive to get a first edition Blue Eyes White Dragon, but in retrospect, the Blue Eyes, I'm not going to say it's going to be Charizard version 2, but technically, if you had to compare it,
it's okay to say that. It's the Charizard of Yu-Gi-Oh!
It is the Charizard of Yu-Gi-Oh!
Yeah, when you have a look at the price disparity between the two, it seems like it's it seems like it's fairly priced probably, and at this point in time. But I don't think it's going to sit there for much longer. Like, that's at some point Yu-Gi-Oh! Is going to get more of a run up than what it has. I mean, just take for example, like the one of the most recent sets. There is what is it? Ghost of the Past. There's people where they have a return of the Dark Magician card and the Blue Eyes White Dragon. I don't know if they got the black the Red Eyes Black Dragon in there, but that's just a recent set, and people are paying like $600 US for the Dark Magician card, and like I think 300-400 for the Blue Eyes card in there. So it's people are noticing, which is interesting, and yeah, it'd be interesting to see how it fares. I mean, we're seeing a run up in DBZ cards as well. So everyone's branching off and into different parts or different sectors other than just sports. So
yeah, I think a lot about that as well, right? Like, I don't know anything about Dragon Ball, so I won't speak to that either. But I do think, if you're going to, I don't know if you guys know about Digimon, But like,
do we know about
like,
Digimon?
Yeah, but so like, don't let me get you too excited. 'Cause I think I'm about to go the other direction. I think people want to branch out into anything that's low, thinking they're gonna see similar returns on this stuff, and I just caution against that. Right? Like, it's not. There's a reason Pokemon is what it is. It's the biggest IP in the world, and if you're going off into other things like I say Digimon again, but the only thing I could think about that comes close to that, and this is even further away from being Pokemon, but has a shot to be that, is Fortnite, right? So
Yeah, correct.
But what happens is Fortnite has a crazy run up, and the blasters are doing $500-$600, and it's like, we got to slow down a little bit here, because like, we're very far away from Fortnite ever being considered something that was as big as Pokemon was. Did Fortnite have a massive cultural impact on this generation? Yeah. Does it have the staying power? You have to wait and see. So in the meantime, when I see prices like that, it gets me nervous, because it's people chasing money and chasing dollar signs, and that usually doesn't play out.
Definitely. No,
Yeah.
there's a lot of people going to get burnt.
We got to see, like, Pokemon's been around for 20 years, right? And Fortnite's been around for like 5. So there's a big discrepancy.
Right, but there's a problem. I see that as a problem. Like, if crystal foils and all that stuff for Fortnite are doing 5-10 grand, it's like, on nothing other than like speculation if this could be the next Pokemon. That's a little silly to me.
100%. Just stupid. It is. It's crazy stuff. Crazy. And
stuff. I hate being like you're probably wrong about this, because people have been telling me I was wrong about stuff in cards, and I'm like, okay, we'll see. But it's just tough. It's a tough ask to ask something to replicate something like a Pokemon or a Yu-Gi-Oh. Even Yu-Gi-Oh is like massive in the scheme of like other properties. So I don't know.
I would argue that more people probably actually played the Yu-Gi-Oh TCG over the Pokemon TCG. I can speak only personally, but even people I know, they never collected Pokemon cards but never played the TCG. Whereas on Yu-Gi-Oh side, a lot of people played the TCG because they just felt like it played better. But that's how they interpreted it in the game, in the show.
It lended itself more to playing it like a TCG, which is interesting. I actually would love. I mean, I'm sure it was. Like, I bet that was a consideration when they were making the anime. You know what I mean? Like, just driving more people towards the game as opposed to Pokemon, which stood on its own as an anime.
Exactly. Well, the Pokemon had the games first, and then came the cards. So it was like,
right. But in the show, it never. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Completely agree. Like, it wasn't like a card thing where it was visually there. It's like, oh, I'm going to play the cards like Yu-Gi.
Literally holding cards in his hand.
Exactly, and then dual decks and all that stuff. It was just literally a marketer's dream. It's like they started selling dual discs and people were buying.
I had one of the things you put it on your arm and you put your cards on there and everything.
Did you have any Kyber Corp tech? Definitely not having the blue eyes just appear. Just every kid was like, if I play my card, that it's going to come to life. But that was how good the show was. It like inspired kids, and it's the imagination. That's why the nostalgia will, as you said, Lou, nostalgia is a massive, massive part, and that will transpire eventually onto the Yu-Gi-Oh card market. So, all right, next one.
Yeah, next one.
Grading.
Sure.
Just a quick one. It's just your thoughts on PSA's current acquisition of Genumint. How do you think it will change the card market?
I think it was smart, right? It was a necessary thing for them. I think PSA is the evil empire of cards, and everyone loves to hate them. Everyone loves them until they can't get exactly what they want out of them anymore, which is people see PSA as a piggy bank, which it has been. Meaning you can buy a card for $7 and you can grade it for $20 and you have it back in a month and you can sell it for $600. That was a pretty common occurrence for the last year. Should it be that way? I don't think so. Obviously, PSA didn't either, and that's why they adjusted their pricing. But the Genumint thing, it's great, right? It's another step in the right direction. Anything that can eliminate subjectivity, from the grading process, I think is a good move. I haven't really read too much up about Genumint and like what their product is and how PSA is integrating them, but I believe they said something like it was more, for now at least, it's more of a check on their graders' work, right? Is that what they said so far?
It's going to be it's a process. I think once they reopen in July for the 6 months leading into the end or 5 months leading into the end of the year, they're going to obviously test it and how it's going to be integrated into PSA. And
yeah, I think it's
which is the right way of doing it. I think a lot of people, when they heard that, were like, "Oh, we open up in July. Am I just going to AI grade everything?" Nat and
doesn't
his
work
group that acquired them really do need to test
That's not
it.
how business works.
Yeah, exactly. You get this technology and this software, and you do that from the get-go, and you stuff it up, you're going to lose more credibility as a business and as a company. So it's a slow burn thing to get it concrete, and then it's like, all right, we've got it sorted, bang. Then they push it out, and then everyone goes and uses it. So that's
yeah, one of the things with grading is everyone wants a 10. And if you don't get a 10, you feel bad and you get mad at PSA. Oh, this card looked perfect to me. Why is it? And PSA doesn't explain it. And so hopefully, I've seen Genumint has like the little subgrades and all that. So that hopefully should dispel a little bit of that as well. But I think everyone, I'm sure 1 year from today, we'll be talking about how PSA never gives out that many 10s anymore. And that'll be because they have a product working on their grading that makes the grades legitimate, as opposed to not legitimate, but backed by more data, as opposed to someone going like this for a second and being like, okay, 9. You know what I mean? So I think that'll be the next thing we'll be fighting in the card game, is a difference in grading prices, and I'm sorry, in grades. So,
funnily enough, Saucy over here, he mentioned something very early on, even before we started the podcast, and he mentioned it a couple of times when we were doing the podcast. But he used to say to me, because I'm like, I didn't really know much about grading. I've been in the hobby for so long, but the grading thing wasn't like massive. And then obviously PSA, and he kept saying to me, "Oh, get 9s. 9s are all right. 9s are fine. Like, you can invest in those." But he always used to say, "Not 10s are obviously the best. Clearly, 9s are great. It's a good entry level into the hobby for some of the cards." But he always said to me, 8s and 7s are worth a buy. He goes, down the track, he goes, surely the market has to correct itself, because it's like some of these cards are really old. So a 7 or an 8 is actually a pretty good grade, or an 8.5. And I think what's going to happen with the AI, and this is a prediction, I could be completely wrong, but there is going to be less 10s, as you're saying, Lou. And because of that, the value of 7, 7.5s, 8, 8.5s, 9s are all going to raise in value, because it's like, well, these are technically some of the better grades you can get, and 10 becomes that sought after grade that it's like, which a 10 should be. It should be obviously the hardest thing to possibly get, and it should be, not for anything, on every card it should be limited in terms of its pop count, because it's like it should be extremely hard. I know it's a bit easier with some of the modern day cards, because some of them are printed pretty much like immaculately when they come off the press, so it's like they grade them and it's a 10. It's like, I get that. But it's like, that should be, the holy grail is always, as you're saying, a 10. So I think the value on a 10, if I'm making sense, if I'm not being too technical, it's like the 10 should be that low pop, hard to get. And in return to that, if you can't afford the 10, a 9, 8.5, and an 8, even like 7.5 becomes a low end type of play. But that 9, 8.5, and 8, there's value in those cards, and they should be valued, because that's still a decent grade. And then you think about some cards that are 40 years old, 30 years old, and you're thinking to yourself,
yes, of course.
Oh, it should be a 10. It's like, do you realize the card's 30 years old? It's probably been sitting in an attic, squashed between folders or boxes on top of it, and you're expecting a 10? It's like, yeah, but it should have been. I didn't touch it for 30 years, but that's not how it works.
Right,
You're not touching it doesn't mean it's not going to get damaged.
Yeah.
It's like, so I don't know. That potentially we could see a scaling change. I don't know. Who knows?
I think in the future, like on modern stuff, if there is a move over to the AI, I think the 7s and 8s and 9s become a lot more valuable. I think right now, you're talking 2018, 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021. there's so much of this stuff right now.
Yeah.
That, like whatever the Luka pop is, it's got to be close to 20K by now, right? I use the Luka obviously as like the barometer for what a modern basketball card is, from a grading perspective. So there's a lot of those floating around, and there's only so many hands that want these cards. So when I think about super modern stuff that's been released already, eights, again, I guess it depends. Like Patrick Mahomes PSA eights play pretty well because it's a combination of it's a low population card to begin with, and he's so popular. But like Luka, I mean, how many 8, 9s, and 10s there are Luka? It's got to be 30, 35,000. So it's a lot. But in the future, for sure, I agree with you. Ideally, that's what it should be, because 10, like you're saying, 10 should be very, very hard to get, and 9 should be really, really great, and 8 should be good as well. So I agree with you. I think it'll be interesting to see what happens in the future with the grading stuff.
Definitely.
It shouldn't be that easy to get a 10. It just shouldn't.
No,
it
shouldn't.
The process that they had was flawed, and they needed to correct it. And
they're doing it.
Word on the street that they are correcting it. Currently, but to the way that they did it previously, I don't know what it was. Maybe it was a bit of a marketing ploy to get people more towards them and over some other grading companies and things of that. But it was flawed. So they needed to fix it, it's good to see that they are doing it. And as hard as we have been on PSA, and not just PSA, but other grading companies as well on this show, PSA is probably taking the steps in the right direction for the hobby, so to make it better for everyone in the long run. So in implementing technology is number one in my eyes, because every industry in the world has implemented technology and made their process or made their business better. There's not many businesses out there that have not implemented technology, and if you get what I'm saying, on the other spectrum, but and things haven't gotten better. So it's definitely it was definitely needed, and it's good to see that they're going in that direction.
Yeah, it's funny. Like the tech thing is super true, and their cards is so far. And I speak to cards in general, right? Like from the supplier side, the customer side, the business side. Like the process of submitting cards is horrific. It's so bad from like a user perspective. Like going in on psacard.com and putting in individual, you have to type out the whole thing and like it just takes forever. And I think this is a very good first step for them to improve the hobby from a long-term perspective, and then hopefully once they figure this out, they can move on to the user experience side, because the user experience side has not been addressed at all on any side, and I don't hold it against them, right? It's just been the way they've operated. So hopefully now they'll be able to make some adjustments there as well.
100%. All right, last couple of them, and then we actually got a special question sent in by someone that you will definitely know. So it'd be very interesting. If someone was to jump into the NBA card market, what advice would you give them?
What advice would I give them? I would ask them to be very honest with them. I would tell them to be very honest with themselves about how much money they have to deploy against cards. And I would say focus on the blue chips rather than trying to find diamonds in the rough. Diamonds in the rough is a good strategy if you have money to spend. But if you don't have a lot of money and you're coming into cards for a flipping, because that's realistically, if you're saying coming into the market, and if they don't care about making money, then I recommend buy what you like, right? But if you're talking about from like buy your favorite teams players, buy all that stuff. But if you're talking about it from a money making perspective, focus on the blue chips.
Definitely, I like that. You love making a play. What's your current play in the hobby?
My current play in the hobby, wax. Hobby boxes, retail stuff. It is far and away the best way to make money in this card game. It is the safest way to make money in this card game. Yeah, listen, like
it doesn't matter boring. What you got. Football, 2020 football, just get it. Whatever you can get.
Yeah, and I think that Ryan has been telling me to buy wax since the day we started our show, and I wouldn't listen to him. I'm like, no, that's boring. This is stupid. Why would I do this? but you just can't lose with wax. And in the world of cards we live in today, with breaking and investing and all that stuff, there's an unlimited need for wax. And what happens, I've now watched this process go through 4 or 5 times. What happens is the product comes out, it's like this, and then there's a ton of it available, and it goes like this, and then it goes like this, and then it goes boom, and it never goes back down again, ever.
It's what's happening with 2020 football. There's so much around. Like I've dropped a fair bit, the previous weeks, and I've been able to find some other stuff that I'm just like edging out to buy out. So I'm trying to sell like some of my cards and things just to get more money to buy more wax. And there's just heaps available at the moment. But I can just see, 12 months from today, there's just not going to be that much available, and you're just not going to get at the prices that I'm getting at right now. Like buying a blaster. Although I was able to get some at retail, I bought another whole case at 120 Australian dollars per blaster, which is maybe like 100 US, which is pretty good price. And I'm just going to plan to sit on them for 12 months. 12 to maybe 24 months. Let's hope. Let's not hope, but like I think one of those guys does something, goes on a bit of a run, and that the wax just goes up, and there's more and more interest in that year of draft. So
yeah, dude, like 24 months is a great time. Like I think as long as you hold wax, you're gonna be fine. But like I even see it as like every 8 to 10 months, you could turn over every box of wax you have and make good margins every single time. Because I was buying Prism when it came out in December, January, Prism football. And it's like, all right, here comes June, July. Here comes the football season. Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow. Everyone's going to want to rip that stuff out. They want the rookie of the year. They want the comeback story with Joe Burrow. They want whatever else. And I'm going to be like, hi, here's all my cellos and all my megas and the mega Ks I have. And like, blah, 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 right? So, the breakers want that stuff, man.
100% they do.
It's so crazy how, like, have you ever been on Loop, the app Loop?
I've heard about it. I've never been on it personally.
Okay,
it's not open to us here in Australia. That's one thing that when people in America they create something, they just forget about everywhere other than America.
Well, so we're gonna have to hit Zilla and tell them to figure it out. But it's crazy going in there and seeing how much stuff gets ripped every single night. Thousands of dollars are getting ripped every single night on Instagram, on YouTube, on Facebook, on Loop, right? And there's just a never-ending need. And once it goes out, especially retail, once it's out of the stores, the prices go like this every single time. So that is where I am spending my energy. I'm buying singles. I just bought 2. Shout out to Rob England. I just bought 2 Ultimate Warrior rookie card PSA 10s. I love WWE.
Oh, nice.
I love wrestling. So I got 2 of those rookies as well that I'm fired up about. So I think of it a lot as like my thoughts with wax is it's a great way for me to build up capital to buy cards that I want, to buy singles. I've had a lot of singles in the past. I just don't want to hold that many anymore. I really only want the ones that I feel comfortable sitting on for a long time. And I want to use wax as a way to build up money. So that's kind of how I've been thinking about it.
I like it. The funny thing is, I love how you give that as a play, because Chris always says to Chris McGill from Card Ladder, Chris Hoge, as people better know him as, he's come on here before and he said, like, the equivalent of like the internet's undefeated is wax is undefeated.
Undefeated.
Literally undefeated. It's very funny. And not for anything, if like yourself, us that have been in it for a while now, you actually start to see that you got to probably start collecting wax.
It's boring and it's not as fun and like all that stuff. But like, you know what else is boring? A 401k. And like, I like having some safety. And wax is the safest thing you can do in cards. So
100%. All right. Underrated card set product in the hobby that's not getting some love. Deserves a bit of love.
Underrated card set in the hobby.
It could be one or
Yeah. I used to say Kaboom. I don't know if Kaboom doesn't get the love anymore. So I will go with Contender's Optic. I think Contender's Optic is a very underrated card. Those auto cards, the rookie tickets and all that, are some of the best design cards that come out every single year. And I don't think, and the color matches are super, super clean. I think it's a very underrated card.
I like it.
That's a nice set. Very nice set. That's even something that I even just go pick up, second, third year cheap, refractors from there that are of guys that I like, that I'm collecting. Just a cheapy little PC that I'm putting together of things. But also I do have a rookie ticket auto of SGA. So in that set, and they look great. They do look.
And they're tough grades too. Optic is a very tough grade.
Yeah, I like it. That's
Second
a
last one. What's your favorite card in your collection?
My favorite card in my collection. It's probably this. I have a Steph Curry Kaboom 2013 that I really, really love. And then the other one I have that's one of my favorites. It's hard to say, right? Like, I have Astro. I love the Astros, so I have a bunch of Astros cards. But another one, I have a Dusty Rhodes rookie card. Not a rookie card. It's like 80s, 84. I have to find it. It's on my table over there. It's like one of the few cards I keep out because I look at it. It's Dusty Rhodes. My mother was the one who got me into wrestling way back in the day. She used to love pro wrestling, and Dusty Rhodes was one of her favorites. So that has been one that I've really loved owning, and I don't think I would ever sell it. I just love having
awesome. I love it.
Yeah.
The wrestling card side of things is it's an interesting area. Like, I used to be massively into wrestling. One of my introductions back to the hobby when I joined 2 years ago was, finding random markets, and there's been a few things that I've found super early and sort of didn't have enough confidence in my own gut to pull the trigger on some of those plays, and it's sort of come back to bite me. And the Rock rookie card is one, and another one in another sport is the Roger Federer Net Pro rookie card, which was another one which I was onto. This is 2 years ago, mind you. So if you were buying those back then, you're sitting pretty right now. But it just goes to show that sometimes you have to trust your gut on these things, and I think wrestling is it's folklore to some people. Like, they've been following it for
very
years,
committed
years.
Audience.
Yeah, that's right. And I've noticed that. I mean, Doma's got a cousin who's followed wrestling for as long as I can remember, right? And like, I stopped following it once they sort of transitioned away from the MA to the M, and it was a bit, and there was the trash talk started to get less and not as good. But I believe there's because it's moved over to a private network now. It's not on like a main network, that the trash talk is coming back in full force. So, maybe it's something that I'll tune into in the new modern stuff. But I like it. Wrestling is definitely a play.
Yeah, during COVID, I went back and forth on because I've always thought that cards should be more popular than they are, but I couldn't wrap my mind around. And this is just my closed-mindedness and me not being open-minded enough and all that. But like, people were talking about F1 and tennis, and I'm like, what? Like, I don't know anyone who likes F1. Tennis is like a very niche sport. I've thought I was so wrong, and I missed out on all of these very interesting opportunities with like a Lewis Hamilton, or you're saying like Fed or Serena, that I just completely ignored for no reason other than I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. I was being stupid. And so that's why when UFC Prism just came out, I pounced on it as hard as I could, because UFC is so popular. And obviously I'm a small piece of the puzzle, but like, even in my comments or my DMs, people are always asking about UFC. The things I get asked about the most: UFC, Pokemon, F1. Every single time, every day of my DMs, I guarantee you I have at least one of those. So when I saw the UFC Prism product come out, I was like, I'm jumping on that. And I got a couple hobbies. I ripped one last night. And I just think the other sports are very, very interesting.
How'd you go? Did you pull anything big?
Nothing interesting. I got it all in the box over there. I got a bunch of cool silvers, and it's like first year Prism, right? So like Conor McGregor, I got a Conor. The cards are doing crazy prices.
You want to flog that Conor off? It's going for 150 at the moment.
It's crazy. They're doing pretty well. I got a bunch of I got a few Masvidals. I got an Usman. So I got a bunch of good stuff, and it just seems like a product with a lot of upside.
I like it. Also, if you do want to dip your feet into the F1 market, there is the play. We gave this to Cage as well. And it's 1992 grid Formula One. That is actually Michael Schumacher's rookie.
I don't know who Michael Schumacher is.
Yeah, so if you do some research into it before you do buy, Michael Schumacher is equal first with
It's like the Godfather of F1.
Yeah, it's like
Michael Schumacher is like Jordan, and then Lewis Hamilton's like LeBron. Let's just put it like that.
Yeah.
Right. It's like the new model, the new, up and come. But then you got like Schumacher who did it first. And in the old school where it was harder because back then when he was driving, they actually had stick shift. It wasn't paddle shift. And then halfway through his career, they transitioned to paddle shift and he had to learn paddle shift and he dominated when it went to paddle shift as well. So like,
you guys like really like fuck with F1.
Yeah, we talk about
Dom is like a massive
yeah,
F1 fan, like more than me. Like I know a little bit, but
can I ask you a couple questions on like just a sports fan level?
Yeah.
So like I've watched the Netflix show that came out, right? So like I watched that.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah.
What do you do for like 3 hours when the races are on? Because that's how long they are, right?
No, it's probably hour and a half.
Okay, so then
I don't watch.
What do you do for an hour and a half?
I just sit there and I watch it.
No disrespect. Like I'm being dead serious.
I just
disrespect.
Watch cars drive around the track.
Is that what it is? That's just it.
Yeah, and the commentating.
Yeah,
the commentating is really good, and the way that they film it is like last season was actually really boring because of the fact that Hamilton was winning races by like 1 minute, and it's just like that's boring as hell. But the middle of the pack stuff is really exciting because there's a lot of overtaking going on. So they're always changing to that, and you're watching cars literally battle it out. And the commentating, like I said, is just fantastic. And there's that's the thing. You obviously hear the radio chat between the driver and their team while they're out there, and there's always stuff. There's crashes and there's this and there's that.
Yeah, I think I'm just like one of those guys who's like a dick about it, and I'm like they're just going around in a circle.
Yeah,
there's definitely more to it that I don't understand, and maybe I need to just sit down because it's on in the morning here usually.
Yeah,
so maybe I'll just sit down one morning and like try to.
Well, there's a race on tonight here for us. So there's the Portuguese Grand Prix will be on today for you, tonight for us. So that's
so the Portuguese Grand Prix. I'm looking it up right now.
Yeah, so that'll be. I'm not sure what time.
It does look for us, because it's on late at night and usually.
So it's tomorrow at 10 a.m. for me.
Oh, there you go.
So
I'm locked. I'm literally. So I have my one buddy. His name's Eddie, who's been like trying to get me to do this. He loved the Netflix show before I did, and he was like trying to get me to buy the car. This is like a few months ago, and I'm like, no, I'm not buying that. Whatever. And I'm like, bro, just buy it for Verstappen. Like the Tops Now, that original Tops Now set. And I think he ended up buying one, and he's done pretty well. I'm literally texting him right now. I'm like, we're watching the Portuguese Grand Prix tomorrow.
There you go.
So like, I mean, it's an interesting thing. Sometimes we're watching it late at night, and I'll just jump on a voice call or something like that, or jump in a clubhouse room with Doma, and we just like talk trash while we watch the cars go around. And like it's one of those. It's a bit like baseball, like there's not something exciting is happening at every point, but then like something exciting does happen. So it's like you gotta have that patience with it like that. But if you're really not that interested, then I suggest tuning into the last 25 laps or 20 laps because that's where all the action happens. And you can skip the first, like if it's 60 laps, you can skip the first 40 laps and tune in the last 20.
Okay.
Unless
I'm watching all 60 laps tomorrow.
I like 100%. it. And honestly, in that meantime, the best thing to do while this race is happening for 60 laps, Lou, research 92 grid Formula One cards and research who Michael Schumacher is, and it's his rookie card. And when I tell you that, like Saul said, he's like the GOAT of the sport. And as we've seen with GOATs in the past, like they run up in prices in Federer, this, that, but like the prices are going crazy. And you look at it and you go, oh, I can buy the wax for $200 to $250 USD a box, and I'm guaranteed to get 4 Michael Schumacher cards in the box.
I'm
pretty interesting. I know. Yeah, but that just research who he is, a bit of the stuff.
Yeah, you'll see what some of the PSA 9s and PSA 10s are selling for, and then my suggestion is just go have a look at the wax prices because it's a 90s wax, and we all know 90s era, junk wax era, the wax is stacked with, product that you need. So...
And as Source is saying, like when you do see those PSA prices, the 9s and the 10s, and you go to yourself, why are they worth this much and the wax is worth 250 USD? That's just a joke.
This is our guy right here.
That's the guy.
That's the one.
So, and the history about him as well, he has driven. So he started at Benetton and then he ended up driving for Ferrari. And that's where really his legacy was cemented, because Ferrari's like the pinnacle in Formula One.
Right. I'm smiling because I'm literally like, I'm just excited to do this now.
There you go.
Tomorrow morning, I will be sitting down, watching the Portuguese Grand Prix and looking into 1992 grid Formula One. That is what I'll
Any questions? Feel free to DM us, because
we
definitely will be watching it. So, all right, lucky last question. As I said, a special one came through. When we spoke with this person, we said that we potentially were going to get you on the show, and he said, "Oh yeah, I've definitely got a question for Lou." So, Cage Lawyer from Luca Tigers Bronze has DM'd me a question for you, and he wants to know. First of all, he says, "Hello, Lou," and then he wants to know who would win in a fight between Tyler and Ryan.
Who would win in a fight between Tyler and Ryan?
In the Octagon.
Those are both my very good friends, and I have a lot of respect for both of them. I think Ryan has a lot more fight in him than people realize. So I think it would be a very tough fight, but I think I got Ryan. I got Ryan going to the cards. No knockout, but going to the cards, I'm taking Ryan.
Nice. And then he said, from whatever the answer is, regardless of what it is, he reckons that you could beat them both up at the same time. So
that's a fact. There's no doubt about that. I can destroy both of them, but Ryan's beating Tyler, I think, in a barn burner.
I love it. Yeah, so he just said through. Very nicely done. Well, thank you very much, Lou. We really appreciate your time jumping on the podcast and having a chat and a laugh. Is it evening over there, morning over here for us? So yeah, we really do appreciate your time.
I appreciate you guys, man. It was a good time. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. And on behalf of myself, Sauce, and Lou, keep living, loving, and breathing all sports. Double coverage and peace.
Peace out.
Thank you for tuning in. Please don't forget to leave a review on the Apple Podcasting app. Also, follow us on socials: Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok. Talking all sports. Double curve.